So we got some juicy new details regarding the lawsuit. We actually have the redacted public version of the lawsuit. This is Fortis Advisors, which is basically the Unknown Worlds, the three leads that were fired off, and verse Krafton Incorporated. Oh my gosh, is there a lot here? So I'm going to go over all of this. It is going to be a very long read, but there's a lot in here. Like they talk about essentially the entire timeline of basically when they believe that Krafton started self-sabotaging Subnautica 2 to get out of paying the $250 million bonus. That's right. Right now, the allegations and what is in here, and we're going to go through it here shortly, is basically Krafton found out and realized that they were going to have to pony up the cash that they promised. And from that point on, they did everything they could. They kicked and screamed and threw a fit, even to the point of breaking the contract and breaking, essentially, well, what they're claiming is that it was a breach of contract. And yeah, it's crazy. All of this to get out of paying Unknown Worlds. It's crazy. Anyways, we're going to get into it. Hopefully you enjoy. If you do, please leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to keep up to date with this as much as we can. Also, I have to say, I am actually in this lawsuit. I went through and I read this entire document, and guess what? Lo and behold, oh, who's in here? Oh, it's exciting. I'm sorry. It's crazy. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's go up here now. TLDR version. If you just want to know what's going on, basically, this whole thing goes over the history of Unknown Worlds, how they got to where they're going, how they got their starting, how important to them early access games are. How they believe that they, pioneered the early access thing, which yes and no. I mean, Subnautica was a very successful early access game, so absolutely. But essentially setting the foundation for making Subnautica as popular as it is, the early access being as core to the reason for its success, why people enjoyed it so much, and basically, what they're doing to the brand and what they did to them, and basically like the sandbagging. All right, let's just get into it. So I highlighted some things. Like I said, it's gonna be a long read, so enjoy, and let's get into it, shall we? Now, also, if you are interested and you want to see this like PDF by yourself, I'll have a link down below to my Discord channel. It's in my news channel. I couldn't really find a good way. I didn't find a good, an easily found PDF option. So I have a PDF option. It's in my Discord. If you want to read it, you can. It's obviously reference only, but it's the public version. So let us begin. In October 2021, Krafton Inc., a South Korean video game publisher and holding company, announced that it would acquire Unknown Worlds pursuant to the EPA. Now, you're going to see this word, this EPA, essentially in here a lot. It's basically their agreement. It's their agreement, that they made with Unknown Worlds. Unknown Worlds would remain an independent studio, thereby maintaining its autonomy to develop and launch great games. Krafton recognized Unknown Worlds' proven ability to create immersive experiences that resonate with gamers around the world, and it represented publicly and privately that it would not change the soul of the studio. In a press release, Krafton wrote, "Unknown Worlds' structure and leadership will remain in place to retain its unique creative identity." Now, again, I'm gonna just talk about the highlighted stuff here, because that's what I went through. I went through and highlighted all this, so I think this is like the important part. In addition to the $500 million upfront purchase, a key component of the EPA, the agreement, is the earnout provision, under which the sellers, the founders, and other Unknown Worlds employees alike were eligible for an earnout bonus of up to $250 million based on Unknown Worlds revenue through December 31st, 2025, with the option to extend the earnout period through June 2026. So that video that I literally just made today that came out that says they extended it, that was already agreed upon. That was already a thing that they could do. They literally just did what they already could do. This is great. I mean, like, it's juicy here. Also, keep in mind, this is just my opinion, my perspective, and this is this side of the story. There's going to be other sides of the story, probably, that, they're going to probably be able to react to this and, like, respond and all that stuff, but it's just, like, I'm going to be smiling when I read this, because right now, reading this, it's like, it's the fight of the small guy, the small team that had the gamers info in mind, and the big bad company is coming in and they're fighting them. So like that's kind of the overall sentiment that we're going to get from this. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. This is one side. We don't know everything is up for interpretation, but I mean, I believe this is like the legal document. So I feel like they have to be relatively honest about the things that have happened and the things that they're saying. So I feel like this should be taken fairly seriously. The founders owned approximately redacted of the shares of Unknown Worlds at the acquisition, but in recognition of their team members' great work, the EPA is structured to provide an outsized earnout to Unknown Worlds employees. It sets aside fully 10% of the earnout amount to be distributed across the team. Beyond this guarantee, the founders planned to share even more of the earnout with their dedicated team. We've heard that multiple times. To support the team's opportunity to gain that earnout, the founders wanted to be sure they retained control of their revenue streams and could not be terminated arbitrarily. In the EPA, Krafton agreed that the founders would maintain operational control of the group companies in all material aspects, including for both existing and new products, product roadmap, launch, planning, partnering, budgeting, and employee matters, so long as at least one of the three of them was still employed. Krafton also promised that, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, in the agreement, it could not terminate any employee of Unknown Worlds during the earnout window, including the founders, without the prior written consent of a majority of the founders. And they cite exactly where that's at. The sole exception to that prohibition allows Krafton to terminate employees for cause. And then they, cite it here. A high bar requiring commission of a felony, an intentional act of fraud or dishonesty, intentional wrongful disclosure of trade secrets, or a willful act or omission by such individual that consists gross misconduct and that is injurious to Unknown Worlds, where willful means committed without good faith and without a reasonable belief that the act or omission was in Unknown Worlds' best interest. Cause definition. So this is saying, unless they did something like bad, they couldn't be fired for no reason. Again, that's going to be a thing here. Krafton further agreed not to take any actions, the primary business purpose of which is to deprive sellers earnout payments, and to consult in good faith with the management team of Unknown Worlds prior to taking any action that would reasonably be expected to materially decrease the earnout amount. Basically saying they agreed to not mess with us and not mess with them to possibly hinder them from making the payout, right? Because we don't want them to purposely sandbag it so that way they don't meet their criteria. Largely because of Krafton's promises to leave creative and commercial control over Unknown Worlds in their hands, the founders were excited to work with Krafton. We're truly looking forward to our future together, Cleveland said in a press release. Now, with Krafton's promises of support, Unknown Worlds works on its next big hit, Subnautica 2. Now, there's a lot of information here. We're going to go into a lot of stuff that answers a lot of the questions that we've been seeing popping up, and a lot of interesting things. Under Krafton's umbrella, Unknown Worlds continued the great work it had been doing when it was fully independent. As before the acquisition, Cleveland was largely focused on running the Moonbreaker team, while others at Unknown Worlds ideated on new game concepts and continue working towards Subnautica 2. Cleveland also got to work on the Subnautica 2 film Krafton's CEO had encouraged him to pursue. You know what's funny is didn't Krafton specifically say something about a film project that Cleveland was working on? And now Cleveland also got to work on the Subnautica film that Krafton's CEO had encouraged him to pursue. Isn't that funny that they tried to throw that around? And guess what? Oh, lo and behold, was it a Subnautica film? Because I know there was the Christmas flick that everybody was speculating or whatever, and I don't think that was ever confirmed through anybody. Cleveland also got to work on the Subnautica film that Krafton's CEO had encouraged him to pursue. Interesting, isn't it? So, Moonbreaker did not sell as well as the team had hoped. We already know that. For Unknown Worlds, the lesson was crystal clear. Early access releases are core to its DNA, and community feedback during game development is essential for its developers to build games the fan loves. So basically what they're saying is that they believe that Moonbreaker did not do very good because they didn't have an early access and they didn't listen to like the player feedback, or they weren't able to during this. Again, I'm not super familiar with the Moonbreaker. I do remember it coming out. I was excited about it, but I never played it. I don't think they ever had an early access for it, which is, you know, I guess maybe what they're saying here, that they know early access is important. Following extensive communications with Krafton about how developed Subnautica 2 needed to be for early access, Unknown Worlds pushed the planned early access release date back to the fourth quarter of 2024. And then to the first half of 2025. The fan community's excitement for the game increased when in November of 2023, Krafton revealed in a financial report that the Subnautica sequel would be released on that timeline. With additional review of the game within Unknown Worlds and additional feedback from and conversations with Krafton, Unknown Worlds pushed the release date one last time to redacted 2025, late 2025. Unknown Worlds saw this as the sweet spot for the release timing, late enough to allow its developers to get the game ready, and early enough for the fan community to join in the effort and help the developers iterate. Krafton agreed. Conversations with Krafton also led to the founders to clarify their responsibilities in 2024 by changing their titles within Unknown Worlds. As the company was growing rapidly and working on several major projects at the time, it was natural for the founders to take on a more supervisory role across the company, as opposed to maintaining pigeonholed on a specific game or project. I kind of mentioned this in one of my videos. I was like, well, if they're a supervisor, they're kind of a higher up. They're not necessarily going to be working on the day-to-day. Like Krafton basically tried to say that they didn't. The founders discussed the plan with Krafton executives, who later confirmed to Gil and Krafton CEO fully supported the plan. Cleveland's title changed from CEO and design director to franchise creative director, removing administrative tasks Krafton required of a CEO and allowing him to focus on Subnautica's cross-media expansion, and in particular, the Subnautica film. Cleveland moved to Los Angeles to network with Hollywood creatives in support of the film. I'm just saying, this isn't looking so great for Krafton right now. McGuire's title changed from technical director to special projects director so that he, Unknown World's most talented engineer, could focus on research and development within the studio rather than on managing people. Basically, their jobs got switched around a little bit, okay? Finally, Gil's title changed from president to CEO, a role that allowed him to free Cleveland from Krafton-mandated administrative tasks and was consistent with the leadership role he had taken on in his years since joining the company. Multiple Krafton executives congratulated Gil on assuming his new role. Basically, those guys, Cleveland moved to LA to do the cross media stuff, right? So they were trying to expand the Subnautica franchise. They want to do a film. They want to do other stuff, if you will. So that's what he was working on. So when they made the statement of, he was working on a personal film project, I don't know. Was it a personal film project, or was it a Subnautica film that the CEO asked him to work on? You know what I'm saying? Doesn't look very honest. It looks a little disingenuous from Krafton. Also saying that all three of these abandoned their positions when they indeed actually got new roles. I feel like that didn't look so good, does it? Now, given its centrality to the company's success, the founders, of course, maintain an active role with Subnautica 2, driving its overall creative and commercial direction and supervising the day-to-day leads. But the role clarifications allowed them to widen their scope and push for the kind of broad franchise IP success that Krafton wanted. That's what Krafton wanted. They wanted the brand to expand. That was the whole point in getting into this. That was the whole point in buying this. They wanted to expand the brand, make it bigger, make more money, right? You don't make those kind of purchases of that kind of money without having a plan. Once again, early access was key to Unknown World's strategy, and to generating such remarkable favor within the gaming community. The symbiosis of game creation and community participation promised millions of copies sold the year after launch. Basically, they went into up here saying that the trailer came out, everyone was super excited, they're looking forward to the early access. Krafton begins to worry that Subnautica 2's success will force it to pay the earnout. As momentum for Subnautica 2 was building, the reality of what this would mean for the earnout hit Krafton. When that happened, everything changed. In early 2025, given the upcoming release of Subnautica 2, Gil was negotiating incentive bonuses for the many employees who were not guaranteed to receive earnout pay because they joined Unknown Worlds after Krafton's acquisition. Basically, they were trying to make sure that everybody was going to get paid, and they were working on that. In the course of those conversations, Gil provided Krafton's executives a set of realistic financial projections incorporating Subnautica 2's release. Under one projection, the founders and other Unknown World employees would earn blank, and under the other, they would make whatever. So basically, while doing those things, talking to everybody, Gil went to Krafton and said, hey, this is what we're looking like. This is like we're estimating. This is how much we're going to make, including Subnautica 2's early access. This is about how much you could be expecting us to make. Now, in subsequent conversations, Gil confirmed that these revenue projections were conservative. So they were on the light side. They were like, they probably a little bit more, but we want to estimate conservatively, and that the actual revenue would likely be higher. Not only were the scenarios missing significant revenue streams, specifically mobile and Nintendo Switch 2 sales, they also likely underestimated continued sales of Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero. Those games would have a bump in sales when Subnautica 2 launched. Absolutely. Subnautica 2 comes out. They're going to have a sale on Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero. People are going to pick those up to check those out as well. That's not unheard of to think that. Perhaps more importantly, the projections considered only what the earnout would be if the window ended in 2025. But the EPA agreement thing permits that the window to be extended through June 2026. With nearly a full year of Subnautica 2 revenue included, it is highly likely that the founders and other Unknown employees would make whatever. That was the turning point in Unknown World's relationship with Krafton. After Krafton's leaders reviewed Gil's projections and evaluated the anticipated revenue and earnout numbers, everything changed. Right now, what they're saying, Krafton did not expect them to make this much money. They put this ridiculous goal out there and like, oh yeah, sure, if you do this, we'll pay you $250 million. And we'll put it in writing too, And then it's actually like, oh crap. They might actually hit this. And that's when things changed. So this is where things start getting, this is where Krafton starts doing their own sabotage. Self-sabotage! During the first week of April 2025, Unknown World's publishing colleagues in Krafton's El Segundo, California office traveled to Korea to finalize the marketing and advertising strategy for Subnautica 2's launch. Upon their return, the El Segundo team, Krafton employees, reported to Gil that Krafton's leadership was not focused on a successful launch, but instead on how it could convince Unknown Worlds to delay the game. That's really weird. The El Segundo colleagues informed Gil that Krafton's legal team was combing through the agreements looking for any opening to terminate the founders if they proceeded with the planned early access release, is what I'm guessing. The El Segundo colleagues told Gil it was clear that Krafton was aiming to avoid paying the earnout. Now, this kind of stuff right here, this is now, as far as I'm concerned, this is now in a legal document. This is a legal thing that they're saying. So my guess is they probably have all of the receipts for all the statements that they're making here. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't feel like I would make these statements without having, receipts, emails, things like that. The founders were shocked. Krafton had promised in the EPA that it would not take any actions with the primary business purpose of depraving sellers of the earnout payments. And now it appears that Krafton was taking steps to delay the launch and even fire the founders for that very purpose. The clash between the game's prospects and Krafton's delay goals crystallized after Gil met with Krafton's chief global publishing officer, Jin Oh. So this is Unknown World's Gil meeting with the chief global publishing officer, Jin Oh. During an April 8th meeting, it appeared Oh had not received the message from Krafton headquarters that Subnautica 2 needed to be delayed. Oh told Gil that the founders were being too conservative in their sales figures for Subnautica 2, that they needed to aim bigger. Oh wanted to put together a business and marketing plan to sell 2 to 3 million copies by December 31st, 2025. Redacted. This would have left the sellers poised to easily make their full $250 million earnout. O pointed to Krafton's recent early access launch of another game, In Zoe, which sold 1.1 million copies in the first week, despite having significantly less content and being less developed than Subnautica 2. O thought Unknown Worlds should easily double that sales figure with proper publishing support. So basically what happened is the O the chief global publishing officer, had a meeting and was full steam ahead doing what they were like, oh yeah, we're pushing it, you know, all this stuff, because they hadn't been told yet, hey, we need to pull the rug. Now, days later, the founders received confirmation that Krafton's support had gone cold. On April 11th, mere days after the 8th, right? 3 days later, on April 11th, 2025, Krafton's head of publishing for the Americas reported to Gil that Krafton was looking to delay the game, but did not seem to have a valid reason for doing so. From mid-April forward, Krafton began building a new story that Subnautica 2 was not ready and could not be released in blank 2025. So out of nowhere, they are now like, wait. We need to delay this. Well, why? We don't have a reason yet. Red flags. Krafton embraces obstructionist tactics to delay Subnautica 2 and avoid paying the earnout. At this point, Krafton began a months-long campaign designed to delay Subnautica 2's launch to avoid the earnout. In late April, Krafton's chief global publishing officer declared that Krafton wanted to assign a new publishing team to Subnautica 2. Despite Unknown World's great relationship with Krafton's El Segundo publishing unit, Unknown World's only requests were for Krafton to assign somebody who had experience in shipping early access titles, could work with Unknown World's mostly American and European time zones, and spoke English at least conversationally. Basically, they said, hey, give us somebody that just has a little experience with early access, could work with us on our time schedule, because, you know, in the Korea time schedule might not be as great. So like, hey, can you just give somebody that can work with us on our time schedule? And we could at least talk to a little bit and have some communication without, you know, the possibility of interpretation errors, which is coming. Krafton met none of those requests. It assigned a VP of publishing who had extremely limited experience releasing a PC game, had just worked on its first early access title, was based in Korea and thus in a different time zone than needed, and did not speak English. In meetings throughout May, Krafton's publishing team advanced the new company line. Subnautica 2 was not ready. They tried to seize control over the launch, asserting that contrary to the clear terms of the agreement that they already agreed to, the release date would be Krafton's call. They delayed decisions and delivered incomplete work product. So basically, they are purposely dragging their feet on everything they can to try to delay this. On May 20th, 2025, Cleveland joined Kim, Krafton's CEO, and some colleagues for lunch. Kim said that if Unknown Worlds released the game on its planned timeline, meaning Krafton would have to pay the earnout, it could be disastrous financially and hugely embarrassing for Krafton. Krafton later asserted that Kim never made those statements. Instead, Krafton claimed Kim's words had been incorrectly interpreted by the translators, an issue that had not arisen in any other translated meeting over almost 4 years. So basically, they said this, and then they're like, no, they didn't say that. The translators misinterpreted that. Okay, so then what did you say? So what did you say that would give that would make this not seem like that? What word was wrong? What phrase was not right? Because to me, you don't phrase that incorrectly and mean something different. A week later, oh my gosh. A week later, Chief Global Publishing Officer, told Gil that if Unknown Worlds was going to release Subnautica 2 with Krafton, it had to be done his way or not at all. Was offended when Gil reminded him that the EPA preserved the release date decision for Unknown Worlds alone. Basically, the Chief Global Publishing Officer said, you have to do this or we're not going to do it at all. And Gil said, well, too bad, we have a contract saying otherwise, so we're going to continue. Shortly thereafter, Krafton demanded that Unknown Worlds delay the game until 2026, again claiming that Subnautica 2 was not ready. Krafton's obstructionist tactics intensified at a May 27, 2025 milestone review meeting, a Krafton mandated gatekeeping process for checking on games in development. At the meeting, Krafton announced that the game had to be delayed based on the review of its internal experts. The founders would later learn that the purported experts had little experience to share. None had worked on a successful early access game, and none had experience with games in Subnautica 2's genre, survival. So their experts were hired people to say what they want. Essentially, that's kind of what I'm reading here. For their part, the founders explained that at the milestone review meeting, why Krafton's view was wrong. and why the planned blank 2025 release should proceed. They explained that playtest data, feedback from hundreds of community members who played the game for thousands of hours, unequivocally confirmed that the game was ready to go. And they expressed concern that taking longer to develop the game internally would risk losing the many benefits of open development, the most important factor in Unknown World's successful track record. Now, I talked about this previously, where everybody else said early access was good to go. Everybody but Krafton has said early access was ready to go. Developers from the Discord server, from Subnautica's own server, were saying 2025 good to go. Literally everybody says it's good to go except for Krafton. Again, the only reason for Krafton to not have it come out in 2025 is to not pay the $250 million. Now, in the last thing that I just talked about, when they extended that deadline, they're still trying to get out of 90% of that, is what was going on with that expansion, the extension, whatever. Krafton takes its delays tactics to another level, pulling all support for the, I'm getting early access launch, for the express purpose of frustrating the earnout. Now, I don't know if frustrating the earnout means something like it, like stressing it, or like trying to make it like not happen, but that's what I'm guessing, because I've read this a couple times and I'm like, I don't understand the context or that wording. But in the face of Unknown World's resolve, Krafton amplified its obstructionist agenda. It sent letters to the founders making a variety of unfounded claims about the game's readiness and the founders' activities, issued an internal stop work order, and pulled all of its resources from Subnautica 2. Krafton pulled all of its resources from Subnautica 2. This orchestrated effort aimed to delay the game and thereby harm the earnout. Krafton pulled the many corporate resources it had long committed to providing Unknown Worlds in support for the launch. For example, Krafton's marketing team had been sent to support the game's release with over blank in asset creation, trailers, influencer kits, audio series, and the blank cover of PC Gamer, probably the front cover of PC Gamer. Krafton simply stopped responding to and paying the vendors, leaving Gil scrambling to inform anyone he could. Something. Redacted. Krafton's localization team that had been set to translate the game into 9 languages needed for Unknown World's global audience, no longer. Krafton's analytic team that had been set to provide backend services, including analytics and server infrastructure, no longer. Krafton's policy team that had been set to devise key policies such as terms and use of privacy, no longer. Krafton's legal team had been set to provide contract review services in advance of the launch, no longer. Indeed, one of Krafton's El Segundo publishing employees reported to Gil that Krafton headquarters told all Krafton teams to stop all creative tasks related to Subnautica 2. The employee's supervision even demanded that he and his team cease communications with Unknown Worlds altogether. Krafton's tactics were so egregious as to impair Unknown World's relationship with key industry partners. Perhaps most notably, the company lost several highly valuable promotional opportunities with blank and blank when Krafton neglected to respond to an email. So they apparently had some big deals going here for publishing and for promotional opportunities, some highly valuable promotional opportunities. I don't know. These could be big. I don't know. Multiple Krafton employees suggested to Gil that the purpose of these actions was to diminish the earnout. And Krafton's head of global strategy and operations told Gil that pulling these resources was a permissible way for Krafton to avoid supporting the earnout. So basically, they started by doing this because these are the things they were contractually probably allowed to do to a point. It wasn't as blatantly, okay, we're breaking contract now. These are things that's like, maybe they weren't breaking the contract, maybe this, maybe that. If this weren't enough, Krafton then took aim at harming Unknown World's relationship with its fan community. It seized control of UnknownWorlds.com and Subnautica.com and posted without consulting the founders or obtaining their approval. A statement apologizing for Subnautica taking far longer than any of us ever intended and making allegations that Cleveland and McGuire's alleged roles. Krafton was never allowed to take control of Unknown Worlds and Subnautica.com without express permission. They were never allowed to do this and did it anyways. This is a toddler screaming and throwing an absolute fit right now. This is what this is. To our 12 million fellow subnauts, thank you for your passion, your patience, your unwavering belief in the world beneath the waves. We owe an apology. The wait for Subnautica 2 has been far longer than any of us intended. Since Unknown Worlds joined the Krafton family in 2021, your enthusiasm has been our true north as we quietly charted the sequel's course. Subnautica 2 is more than a follow-up. It's promised to deepen the wonder, discovery, and survival that defined the original. To honor that promise, we are returning to our roots. We've asked the series creators, Charlie Cleveland and Max McGuire, to once again helm the journey. No one understands the soul of Subnautica better, and we believe the leadership is the surest way to craft the experience that will surpass your expectations. Charlie and Max are now considering our invitation and we hope to collaborate closely. This was them saying basically that Charlie and Max were no longer a part of it, and they're like, oh, well, we hope they come back. We hope they come back because they're not here no more. Really? Our goal is simple: deliver the first. Like this right here is like, this is such classic big company throwing a fit. Like, this is 100% big company throwing a fit. And I honestly, I hope all of this absolutely torches Krafton. I hope it nukes them, and I hope they become like a joke of a publisher. This is such a bad, like, if this is all true, again, if this is all true, I'm trying to not get too heated here, but like I read through this whole thing, and it makes me more mad than anything else that big companies do this garbage and they get away with it. The message threatened to cast a cloud of uncertainty over the game within the market and the user base. Posting this message without the knowledge or consent of anyone at Unknown Worlds violated multiple provisions of the EPA, including the founder's right to complete operational control over Unknown Worlds. Krafton was forced to take the message down and return control to the two websites. So they knew what they did was wrong, and by them taking it down, they admitted to guilt. They've already admitted to breaking the contract once. Like, that right there, to me, that's already a sign that they are, in fact, doing this on purpose. Around the same time, Krafton escalated its intimidation campaign against the founders. In a June 10th letter to the founders, Krafton's CEO made unfounded claims about Cleveland and McGuire's involvement with Unknown Worlds and falsely accused the founders of failing to fulfill their contractual responsibilities and violating their fiduciary duties. On June 18th, Krafton's head of global strategy and operations met with Gil and made Krafton's first attempt to get the founders to accept a lower earnout. Right here on June 18th, Krafton's head of global strategy and operations met with Gil and made Krafton's first attempt to get the founders to accept a new lower earnout. Right there is your first, like, if you were in doubt that they were trying to save money, attempt number one, trying to get them to accept a lower earnout. Krafton's lowball pressure tactics would not have left the sellers anything close to what they had deserved and did not allow them to share the earnout with the full team, so the founders declined. They said, no, we already agreed, that's what we're doing. By June 19th, Krafton again increased its effort to pressure the founders not to release the game. Krafton sent another letter taking issue with Unknown Worlds exercising its contractual right to control the launch date. They had the right. It was in the contract. You can't just renegotiate that. Like, it was in the contract. They have no right. The letter again made baseless allegations that the founders were violating contracts and breaching their fiduciary duties, and it threatened that to prevent the release of Subnautica 2, Krafton would take over operational control of Unknown Worlds, despite the EPA's direct command to the contrary. Basically, they're saying, oh, well, you guys are doing this, so we're going to take over. Even though there's nothing to, they're not backing it up. They're just speaking. They're trying to intimidate them by saying, well, we're the bigger company and we can do whatever we want. No, you can't. No, you can't. And guess what? The internet will not let that happen. Krafton returned to the negotiation table on June 26th, this time offering the amount that Krafton's model showed the earnout would be without marketing and publishing support for Krafton, without the marketing and publishing support Krafton had pulled. Krafton acknowledged in this meeting that sales would be more successful and the earnout higher had Krafton provided the agreed upon marketing and publishing supports for Subnautica 2. The founders again declined the offer. Basically, they came back and they said, okay, we'll give you this much, but this is based on us not promoting and publishing. It based on us not promoting it as much as we were going to. And so they're like, nope, take a hike. We already have an agreement. We already have a contract. The founders' last interactions with Krafton leadership were in late June. On June 25th, 2025, Krafton's head of corporate development told Gil that Krafton's plan was to remove the Unknown Worlds board and fire the founders. She warned Gil that the lawyers are ready to go. This was their last attempt. They said, hey, we're going to fire you unless you agree to a lower payout. And we've already got lawyers ready to go. Cool. Well, guess what? Too bad, because now you're going to nuke the game. You're not going to get nothing. 2 days later, on a call with Krafton's global head of strategy and operations, Gil made additional efforts to negotiate with hopes of reaching a mutually agreeable outcome and gaining Krafton's support. Among other things, Gil suggested that the founders would personally take less, so a larger portion of the earnout could go to the rest of the team. In response, Gil was told that this will be our last call. Nonetheless, even in the face of Krafton's extreme sandbagging and pressure tactics, Subnautica 2 remains set for its early access release, 2025 release. Krafton's campaign had needlessly harmed the game, but it had not prevented the launch. Krafton was out of options. Krafton fires Unknown Worlds founders and seizes controls of the studio to delay Subnautica 2, aiming to avoid the earnout and keep all the profits for Krafton alone. With the blank launch date looming and its delay tactics having failed, Krafton took the nuclear option. It fired all 3 founders and delayed the game's launch until 2026, which it couldn't do. They contractually could not do this. On July 1st, 2025, Krafton emailed each of the founders with letters informing each they were terminated effective immediately. Before terminating the founders, Krafton also removed them from Unknown Worlds' board of directors without their knowledge. Indeed, Krafton did not consent with the founders before either their termination or their board removal, contrary to Krafton's express promise to consult in good faith before taking any action that would reasonably be expected to materially decrease the earnout amount. Again, they're saying, you agreed to this, and now you're not holding your thing. In the termination letter, Steve, acting on behalf of Krafton, explained that each was fired because of their intention to proceed with a premature release of Subnautica 2. This right here would be extremely interesting to see, is if we got a letter that was from Steve directed to the 3. If this letter got leaked and it said, oh, you're getting fired because you intend on a premature release of Subnautica 2. Oh my God, stoke the flames. Though reference to subsections of the founders' employment agreements, the letters make clear that the founders were terminated without cause, despite the express terms of the EPA permitting only for cause termination. Basically, they could only get fired for like egregious problems, like felonies, purposely like bad stuff. They couldn't just they couldn't get fired because they didn't like him anymore. That's the entire point of this, because like if you have a contract, like the whole earnout thing, right? They made an agreement. They said, okay, we will work for you, and if we do a good job, we get paid this much. This kind of stuff, make sure that they can't just, like, Krafton can't just say later, okay, cool, you made that much, but now we're going to fire you and avoid paying that, Like, you can't do that. Specifically, the termination letters provided that Krafton's payment of the amounts and benefits set forth in Section 7B of the employment agreements is conditional upon the founder's release of claims. In turn, Section 7B of the employment agreements describes post-termination payments and benefits for as relevant here when employee terminated by the company without cause. Basically saying they completely cited the wrong section. Had Krafton terminated the founders for cause, the proper subsection to reference would have been this one. Again, this without cause termination violates the express terms in the EPA, which allows Krafton to fire the founders only for cause. Because obviously, oh, I'm going to pay you all this money if you do good. Oh, you did good. I'm going to fire you first so I don't have to pay you now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. Nor would Krafton have had cause to terminate the founders. The EPA specifically limits a for-cause termination to situations involving the commission of a felony. We kind of already read over this. Basically, they have to do something bad. The founders have not individually or collectively done anything that could even plausibly fall within this strict definition of clause, saying that nobody's done anything that they could maybe bend to fitting this. There's nothing in there that they've done. In short, Krafton flagrantly breached both the letter and the spirit of promises at the very core of its agreement upon agreement to purchase Unknown Worlds. It promised to leave creative and operational control in the hands of the founders, promised broken. It promised to consult with the founders before taking any actions that could harm the earnout, promised broken. It promised not to take any action without the primary business purpose of frustrating the earnout, basically sabotaging the earnout, promise broken. And it promised to not terminate the founders without cause, promise broken. Why? Because Krafton knew that allowing the founders to launch Subnautica 2 as planned would generate enormous commercial success and require Krafton to pay the $250 million earnout. By firing the founders and delaying the launch, Krafton can capture what's left of it, the game's commercial success, without having to pay Unknown Worlds team a penny of the earnout. In the name of its bottom line, Krafton has thrown its promises out the window and ripped the game from the hands of both its creators and its community. Like, I don't know if like your guys are as upset as I am, but like this is like if this again, this is only one side of it, and I'm trying to be like as open to it, but like all of this is an illegal thing. I feel like they would have receipts for all of this, and like all of this makes sense because all of the stuff we've had has been like, wait, what is this coming from? Wait, where is this coming from? What is this? This ties everything together very nicely. The Unknown Worlds fan community's backlash is swift and fierce, showing Krafton has already done substantial harm to the Subnautica 2. So basically, this next section is saying Krafton has damaged the Subnautica name, has damaged the Unknown Worlds name. Have they damaged it? Yes, because it's Krafton's. So now nobody's going to trust it. Because like, oh, well, Unknown Worlds is owned by Krafton. It's, Krafton. It's a terrible company. So, yeah. The community backlash to Krafton's actions has been swift and decisive, and it demonstrates that Krafton made a miscalculation. Krafton apparently thought it could fire the founders and delay the game without harming the franchise, thereby making money for itself while avoiding the earn-out obligations. But the community's reaction shows that Krafton has already caused immeasurable damage to Subnautica 2. The near universal community action was summed up by one devastated fan's July 2nd post on Reddit. Subnautica's soul has just been ripped out. It is. And then this is where we get into more stuff. So basically, there's a whole bunch of stuff saying all this stuff in here. The fan reaction was so devastating that it promptly picked up in the industry trades, with one outlet noting Subnautica 2 fans worry the underwater survival game is dead before arrival, following its studio's sudden leadership change. I'm scared to know what this means for the future. Basically, another article saying, yep, there you go. And then, of course, I don't even have mine highlighted here. Similarly, a major YouTube channel posted a video entitled Subnautica 2 in Trouble After Founders Fired from Unknown Worlds. The video gained nearly 100,000 views and thousands of comments in just a few days. And guess who it is? It's me. The video's creator noted, I thought we were in a really good place for this game, and I can't say that I have confidence anymore, and my expectations for Subnautica 2 have severely dropped. We've seen this before with other games. Changing the leads and stuff like this just completely kills it. You know what? 100%. Let's go. We also have The Last Bacon is in here with their video. Absolutely awesome. Oh my gosh. Like, it's just, it's the truth. It's the truth. Now, what do they want out of all this? So I'm gonna paraphrase this. I'm gonna try to make this as clean as I can. Basically, all of this stuff, everything they've done has basically destroyed the Subnautica name and Unknown Worlds name. And they also, well, here, let me just keep reading this. In the face of the overwhelming negative reviews, Krafton entered damage control mode, releasing a public statement on Unknown Worlds' website on July 3rd. In the letter to our community, the new leadership reflected on the vision and core values of exploration and discovery that have defined Subnautica 2 from the beginning, and declared that the team working on Subnautica 2 remains completely unchanged. That's a lie. The fans saw straight through this letter. As one fan blatantly put it, with all due respect, it doesn't matter what you say at this point. I will be waiting until the release to decide if I buy it, and quite frankly, I might just wait till it's on sale if I buy it at all. I don't want to support a company that stole a game from its original developers to meet a deadline. We also had the Do Not Buy Subnautica 2 on the Reddit post, which, you know what, honestly, if, like, again, this just looks so bad. It just looks so bad. Krafton may have believed it could fire the founders and delay the launch without harming the franchise, allowing it to keep the money for itself while avoiding its earn-out obligations. But it is now clear that with such strong backlash, Krafton has put Subnautica 2 itself at risk. With fan support and engagement, particularly through the early access process, being so crucial to the commercial success of Unknown Worlds games, Krafton's effort to avoid its contractual obligations have already severely damaged Subnautica 2's prospects, and thus the sellers earn out. Basically, what they're saying is that even if they have it come out this year, that there's no way they're going to sell nearly as many copies as they would had they done it the right way, because now nobody trusts Krafton. They are saying that regardless of the outcome of this lawsuit, they've already ruined it. They've already done the damage. And this was just another step in them not having to pay out what they were contractually agreed upon. Basically, what this is saying is basically the things that they breached. And it kind of goes into a whole bunch of things. So there's this one, there's a few things. Again, you can read all this yourself if you want to. But what they're saying and what they want out of this is restoring the founders to their positions and board seats at Unknown Worlds, restoring operational control of Unknown Worlds to the founders in all material respects, requiring Krafton to consult in good faith with the founders before taking actions that would reasonably be expected to materially decrease the earn-out amount, barring Krafton from disposing of material assets of Unknown Worlds without prior written consent of a majority of the founders, and barring Krafton from taking actions, the primary business purpose of which is to deprive sellers of their earnouts. Basically, they're saying they want their positions back. They need to restore this. They need to have their operational control back, all of this stuff. Now, honestly, what I would like the most out of this is for them to breach of contract and then like Unknown Worlds separates from Krafton altogether. I don't want Krafton anywhere near Subnautica anymore. I don't want Krafton near Unknown Worlds anymore. I don't want that. Now, like I said, hopefully, I mean, if this happens, the problem with this is that there was already a legal document. There was already an agreement that they were going to do something. So having them go back to doing the thing and saying, okay, well, the court system said you had to do this. What is stopping them from repeating the thing? What is stopping Krafton from doing the exact same thing over again? They've already did it. They already had a contract that they broke. So what is stopping them from saying, okay, cool, you guys have control of Unknown Worlds again, and then, but then, like in a year from now, they pull the same thing. You know, like it's just going to be hand slapping at that point. So, I honestly, I want nothing of Krafton. I want Krafton to just see themselves out the door and be gone. Like they should just split and be done. Contractual, they broke the contract, they're done, null and void. That's what I think. That's what I would like to see happen. But there is that. It was a very long read. It's a very long video, and I do apologize. But I wanted to read it all because there's a lot of stuff in here, and a lot of people might want to rather listen to this than read it. Like I said, if you want to read it and you want to check it out for yourself, I'll have a link down below to my Discord. It is in my Discord under the news channel. It's just a PDF. Again, it's just a for reference PDF. It's not like a legal binding document or anything like that. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just sharing it, but. As far as I'm concerned right now with everything, we have gotten this side of the story now. This to me paints the picture of what's going on. To me, all of this sounds like with the stuff that we saw that was like out of character and like, wait, what's going on here? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? All of this makes sense to me personally. All of this just points to the fact that Krafton doesn't want to pay. They didn't think they were going to, and now they have to. And I'm sorry, but like these companies like this is the garbage they do. They'll do whatever they can because guess what? Oh, we're gonna have to go to court. The court costs and this stuff is gonna be cheaper than the $250 million that they would have to pay out. Now, part of this also is they want them to pay the $250 million. So like there's that too. But like this is the kind of stuff that like this absolutely, I really hope that this goes through and that they do whatever. But yeah, like this just goes through and like I hope that everything gets figured out. Again, this is one side. I'm gonna guess that they probably are able to respond to this and they're gonna be able to say whatever. But like honestly, I just like from day one, I have a hard time believing the big company. And everything here seems like it all makes sense. None of this sounds like outlandish. None of this sounds unheard of. None of this sounds crazy, It sounds like a large company that's just trying to get out of paying people, which is what they do. The number one thing every large company is it's all about making money. That's all it always is. It's all about making these millions and millions of dollars. And that's all it is. They wanted to delay the game so they didn't have to pay $250 million, and then they still wanted to recoup all of the money from selling Subnautica 2. They wanted to get all of the good stuff, but they didn't want to have to pay for it, And that's why I don't like it. I think this is crazy. I don't know. This is crazy. Leave a comment. Let me know. What do you think? Leave a like on the video. Like I said, it does help out the channel a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already. Again, I do apologize. This is a really long read, but I think it's worth it, and I think it's important, and I think it paints us a much better picture of what's really going on here, and it just doesn't look great. So, oh my gosh, that's it for tonight. Have a wonderful one. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.